a couple of
We're letting Xuan set up her teen workshop, and I'll just introduce you to the wall that you see with all these pressing questions about institution and learning and education. I'm Laiba.
I'm Alice.
I'm Will.
And we're all co-researchers on a project called Shifting the Margins, which thinks through the sort of education system that we have passed through as Will is in second year still, but post-graduation and the atomization and segregation of individuals and what it means to collectivize and what it means to collectivize and build sustainable networks of friendship to not just keep our practices alive, but just also create a community where feelings of marginalization and isolation are kind of addressed within the institution as BIPOC individuals. And we're making a toolkit, but we're dividing this sort of section into, I'll show you the toolkit after, in the last hour, and we're presenting Xuan's workshop first. And Xuan is also a part of Shifting the Margins. She's also a co-researcher.
And as you can see, there's a wall, and we would love to invite everyone to try to think about the question during the whole workshop, and then feel free to write anything on it. After Xuan's presentation, me and Will are gonna quickly talk about how the research group work and what kind of group would we talk with. And also we had a little bit performance interaction activity.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't know, we've done similar exercises like this at other presentations, and it's kind of a part of the collaborative resource building that I think we're trying to really centralise as part of the research. And so it's really about people feeling comfortable at any point, just to, if there's anything that pops into your head, just to stick it up on the wall, and then it's like a really immediate forming of resources and sharing as well. And yeah, we'll do some more sharing and moving as well, because it's quite cold in here, so we'll do some moving around with some little performance exercises a bit later.
Yeah, okay. Do you want to make it? Yeah, sure.
Are they going to read one more first?
Okay.
Did you just get an audio or a video?
It's like a slide.
Do you need audio?
Not for today.
You guys can all kind of move in front and form a bit of a circle, because it would kind of equitize the space a bit, rather than me standing there and talking. And also I'm really nervous.
All right.
So today we'll be talking about Outstretched. well, I mean, it started as like this internship program from Careers Service and the art department at APR. And honestly, it started like in a really weird way because people were researching, like really researching very like scientific methods of like things. Like someone was like conducting a study on like long COVID and stuff like that. And then I was handed this project, and they were like, you should go into it like with a practice-based methodology. And then I looked at everyone like dealing with statistics, and I was like, okay. So essentially, this started after the whole wave of like racist and like anti-racist measures in Goldsmiths, like 2018 to 2019. It was like really turbulent at that time, because like a lot of POC staff were laid off, especially like after COVID hit, and there was a lot going on, but there was also very
It's okay.
okay. There was also very limited reflective discourse. Like not a lot of people were coming out to give like reassurance that they were doing fine, and like it created quite a lot of friction in the department, which I've heard, and like a lot of tutors were very angry and stuff, and like there were a lot of open letters and yeah, stuff like that. So the first thing that I wanted to do through this was kind of through conversations, interviews, like to talk to members of staff and like figure out what was going on in their lives. That was like the most basic part of it, and then I realized like while talking to them that like they would go through anti-racist training, but like because I didn't know, like it didn't show up in their teaching. So I, as a student, had like no idea that they had gone through anti-racist training. And then the anti-racist training would be kind of stuff like what is internalized racism, and then they would have a workshop, and then they would take like check boxes and stuff. And obviously, like we all know how effective that can be. And like this is actually like a really kind of dangerous situation when you do that to members of staff, because like especially in the art department, when a lot of tutorials are staff and student only, and like it's kind of very intimate things when like you share practices, and you kind of teach them things through a method like ticking checkboxes. It doesn't really foster the sort of empathy that you would expect in art pedagogies. So like yeah, it just didn't translate well to students. So I had like it's just me. Yeah, it's okay, we don't have to play this.
It would sound, but
No, it's okay, we don't have to play this. Yeah, okay. So these conversations with staff, they took place with food, like specifically food that I was familiar with, that I used as like instruments for healing. So a lot of these like little things that I had with the people that were involved were one-to-one, and then we would have like the exact same food that like I prepared or they prepared, and like I also prepared them here, which I will talk about in more detail. And like they were over mealtime, so for I think we can just use the kettle straight. They were like for 45 to 90 minutes ish, or like longer. I had like a conversation with Ali, and it took like a really long time. Cause it no, it's not your fault. There were some where I was like, okay, we'll have like half an hour, and then I would leave the place like 4 hours later, cause it just went on and on and on. They were like not meant to be linear. So like I would often start with a question, and then they would the conversation, what kind of role. And I also kind of took this format from like having grown up in like half, because I'm from Singapore, right? So I live like in a city, like a very urbanized city. But like my mom's side is from West Malaysia, which is like this very rural town that we call kampong. And like something that I was very familiar with in a kampong was the fact that gossip was a form of community care. Like it sounds very, like it doesn't make sense when you say it like that. But like in a kind of really small community of like 50 people, sometimes like the way you care is just like by talking about them. And like often I found that like I would bring that ideology into an institution where I would look at a teacher and be like, village elder, stuff like that. Which, you know, obviously I shouldn't be doing that, but I thought like that there was a sort of structure in like the casualness and the candidness of like small communities that made a lot of sense when trying to give care and trying to untangle a lot of these very difficult conversations about race and like very emotional things actually. A lot of these conversations were like therapy sessions as well. And the whole aim of it was to produce a sort of resource. I'm like starting to really hate the word resource, but you'll get the point. Like a resource for kind of consolidating all of these tiny little takeaways that I got. And some of the questions that I had over the past few months was about the ethics of it as well. About like how much gossip is like ethical. So I made it like a very big point that when I publish like these resources, like there will be no names mentioned, and like no specific incidences mentioned unless they were my experiences, because it's my project. And like the blog posts were headed by the date and then by the food that we ate. So a lot of these conversations were also like very food centered, where like if you got stuck on a point and like you felt kind of awkward with the person you were with, and you would just eat the food and comment on the food. And I think it like made a very nice sort of parallel between these sorts of things. Okay, so yeah, I'll just start with introducing the food first, and then we can all have it. So I've made like, okay, if you saw just now on the screen, it was ginger tea, and ginger tea in Chinese medicine is considered like very warm, very heaty, like the constituency is very heaty, and it's very good for winter. But I was also thinking of it as like a sort of like bringing people closer together and like incorporating that sort of warmth within an institution that could be like potentially isolating and making it like more warm per se. And I put like a lot of good herbs in there, so everyone needs to have some. And that is some sour plum, which is just good for constipation because I have stomach problems. So like I thought I wanted to share it. And these are haw flakes, which are like one of my favorite childhood snacks. Like the reason why there are so many here is because I had to like control myself to not eat them by putting them like outside my door, and it was too cold to go outside, so I couldn't eat them. But like we can all have them. But when I was younger, I would have like many of them all at once, and it was, yeah, it's not very good if like you're eating a lot of them at once, but they're very yummy. Yes. And lastly is this ginger tea, which has a lot of herbs in there. The ingredient list is there, but the ginger powder that I use is mixed in with a bit of flour. So if you're like gluten intolerant, then maybe that's not a good thing. Like you shouldn't be drinking that. And yeah, we can get the food first, and then we can start talking. I'll start, because no one's coming.
It's not so long.
Thank you. Yeah, so if you can see, there's a bit of ginseng pieces inside. Don't worry, these are like quite cheap ginseng, because I have family who tries to grow things and I dry them in the oven and stuff. And these are goji berries. And the brown things are actually like dried honey pellets, which I found at an Asian mart. I actually didn't know that they had that until like I went there. And there's rock sugar. And like just a lot of herbs in general, and like we all can share. Yes. Okay. I'll start. Yeah,
I want to try one of those.
please try the
You
tea.
hype them up so much.
Packaging itself is such
Yeah,
appealing.
they made me think of fireworks.
It really does.
Isn't it?
Or like love hearts, they make me think.
Oh yeah, they've got a love hearts built in as well.
Share the love.
Yeah, this is actually like all very digestion centered. Usually, like during the conversation, I kind of, I think would you like that? During the conversations, I would like kind of tailor the food to what the person wanted or needed.
I haven't.
Yeah, they're really good, right?
What's it made out of? Hawthorn.
They're so good, right? Like if you don't stop me, I'm gonna like devour all of that.
Oh, this is good.
Yeah, I can see the addiction.
Yeah. They remind me of those little like freeze-dried berries that you get like.
Yeah, they kind of are actually, but like somehow like nicer.
Oh, this is amazing. There is one. I think maybe it perhaps it can't be the same berries which you're talking about, but in India, like where I come from, it's like west of India. There are these berries which you put in curry.
Oh, do they taste like that?
Yeah.
It might be the same.
It does have that ingredient, like in taste, which I recognize very.
You can eat all of the things inside, by the way. Like, they're all edible.
I can really recommend these. People haven't been.
Can you just put it all in together, yeah? I
Yeah.
thought that.
These
No,
are.
like, this is meat, but it's not.
Well, I mean, you can eat that straight, but like you shouldn't.
Sour, sweet.
Oh,
You
you eat-
shouldn't really eat them if like, you're not having stomach problems.
Does it mean that you get stomach problems?
Like you would, like it's a laxative.
Oh,
But it's only a laxative if you eat like a lot, which is what I did one time. Oh no. So,
Are they sour or sweet?
they're like
Sorry,
sour, sweet, salty.
Oh my god.
Oh, you're not.
They're really good.
They are good.
So prune.
It's a taste sensation.
So one minute,
Yeah.
you can have one, right?
That's good though.
Is that what?
Yeah, I think one is a safe dose. Not
Actually, got a long train.
Oh, wow.
not shake up the system too much.
It's like their toilets on the joke.
Oh my god! Oh my god, this is.
Yeah, right. It's so, like you cannot stop one.
I'm going to.
Get comfortable. Well, great.
Yeah.
What's the verdict on the berry?
It?
Just before you get home.
It's like when I turn around and look at her, it just comes out.
I love that food.
Does anyone want to take extra? Not have other kettle.
You can actually put them in boiling
Sorry.
water
Can I
as
put
well.
water in it for you?
Yeah, it's
Because it is.
probably better. Actually, I need to get some more.
Do you want
Get some more.
Oh yes, please.
Is it leaking? It's not, it's like a, is it somehow, yeah. Something is going on with it.
Okay.
So many kettles are like that. They have one job.
You should take, by the way, there's a lot. Oh yeah, it's very good for like women. Like
have like period cramps.
yeah.
That's what you have.
This isn't for me, by the way, it's on the side.
Well, I mean, you're from me.
Yeah, so we need a couple over here.
And it gets a bad tummy, so.
Is anyone want some? Do you want some too?
Yeah, I think I was trying.
Is someone drinking this?
I think it was.
Okay.
Very strong smell.
Yeah. Oh.
Oh, this is amazing.
Well, usually the one I have is like a lot spicier. But the gingers here aren't like that spicy.
That's the ginger that we have this.
Very old, right? Yeah. Like when I had this as a kid, like it was so spicy, I would be like crying.
No.
I didn't know.
And that's the flavour.
So what, these are different flavors?
No, they're the
They're the
same.
same, are they?
Yeah.
It's over 4 months now.
Let it in.
These they feel almost like they're a bit.
I didn't
Gaining
know.
steam feels like. Get grown so quick.
Yeah.
Okay.
I should probably buy it like from where I stay.
She's very happy and healthy. We moved into a new flat in October. So yeah, we feel like we're kind of settling in.
Do you need more water?
A lot of new beginnings.
Yeah. Okay, we can start again. So, I guess the first question that like I usually brought into spaces was, what does labor look like to you? And the reason I asked that for a lot of tutors was because like they, especially like white tutors, was the fact that like the idea of like having to do extra labor on top of what they're already doing when they're teaching, which is a lot, like a lot. I didn't know this, but like art tutors, like when they start teaching, they barely have time for their own practice. And that's like something I never knew until I started talking to them. And then I got like really obsessed with the idea of labor as well, because it's just different, you know, like labor versus like work, or like when you say I'm going to work versus like I'm putting in labor. There's a different connotation there. Yeah.
There's also a perception around art practice of something is overworked or it's over-laboured, as though to produce something kind of exceptional you have to make it look easy, or you have to make it so you've been practicing so many times that you can just produce something with facility, but that doesn't take into account the many, many hours of work that go behind that kind of production.
So I went to the curricular and talked to the tutor, and I think like lots of tutor and animation, they mentioned about how precarious the current working condition is, because they feel they're being really scrapped. There are more students, but there's no like they are doing more work. Even though they want to care each student, but they can't really do it, and they have to do lots of extra work behind, as you said, don't have time for their own practice. And also, you mentioned about the contract. Schools sometimes have new staffs that usually goes tutor need time to, for example, explaining everything and catch up with the student to build a relationship. But with the content, the stuff that's new, and they need to review and rebuild this kind of invisible label to build a trust, build a connection.
Yeah. I guess I think that's one thing that a lot of educators do, which is try to hide a lot of the pain and suffering that they're going through from the students. Which I guess it comes from a protective standpoint, but at the same time students don't see it. And when they go actually go to start work, because in art it's actually very common for students to just end up becoming art tutors eventually. They're like, oh, it's like that. I never knew it was like that. Or often I found that I learned more from my tutors when they were being really honest with me about what they were going through. Especially because you start seeing them as more human rather than just critiques of your work. And I guess a big thing that I was thinking about also was about humanity, in education systems, because it's very easy to forget that humans are humans when you're in an institution. And I was wondering what people thought about sort of humans and labor, when you're a person working in an institution, but you're trying to be seen as a person rather than as a working person. Yeah.
Because the working conditions in the bureaucracy is so unmanageable. I've noticed that almost everyone, a lot of people, and I find it quite abrasive when people won't do this, but so many people are willing to break the rules. They just want to do anything, but it's not that facilitates using resources, or I had an experience recently trying to get through a gate that is just locked up the weekends when you need to email someone to get a pass, and it's this shared experience that everyone has of it just being too difficult to get things done, and then these moments in which we do things for each other that aren't the institution. I think it was when you were talking about this anti-racism training, and then having the tick boxes that is super dehumanizing for the individual students. And then I was thinking as well that the only ways to complain about that or to respond to it, to have it be responsive, is to create more work and more bureaucracy. That's the only mode that the institution allows, and it's the only work that it pays as well. Yeah, which is.
I had quite a different view on when I came to Goldsmiths before coming here. I was watching a video on Black Mountain College, and the students and the faculty, you couldn't tell who was who, because the people who were teaching were working with the students on artwork, and they all learned from each other in that community type of way. So I felt it was both, the teacher doesn't miss out on their practice because their practice is with the students. And it was there's no separation between, and also they weren't under regulating bodies. It was a separate thing entirely, and it was funded by the works that they would produce, that they'd bring to galleries and sell, and the money that came from there,
it just goes back, so it's a cycle.
So the question that I asked in my interview was, is Goldsmiths anything like Black Mountain?
And they were like, you are in.
Did they try to tell you it was?
Bernard, he looked at me and he was quiet for quite a while. And then said you're gonna like it here. So I just took that as a yes. And I'm just waiting, you know. So far, the conveners are very close to, and this APR as well is very close to like discussions can be had. But if we were to include art in this, then it would be Black Mountain.
Can I say something?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, I've been working on these short. I was a PGR student, and then I was working and I was doing other work to do that. And I've been doing 2 sort of short-term associate lecture jobs in the last couple of years. And these things that you raise about the student, the kind of the boundary and the kind of the student-teacher relationship are interesting. But one thing that really kind of I think about is actually in the departments that I've been working with, and I'm not going to, I feel like that actually people need to work with each other better as well. Do you know what I mean? I mean, in my experience, there's a lot of understanding about the students and their care, and people take responsibility for their pastoral care and, you know, this kind of thing, but also just working with each other to learn how to work together as a team, like in the disparity between maybe how they're saying that, but the sort of structures of the system and how that could be bettered, you know? Like, I mean, it's like working in these systems, does it force people to be, you know, competitive? Does it, you know, it's weird. I find it quite weird. I think a lot of work needs to be done there, actually.
Yeah, it's a bit strange actually, because it's like, you know, it's competitive, but it pretends not to be.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And you feel like that you're in the art sort of. Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. It's I find it strange to. Yeah, slightly uncut. Yeah, the different motivations and the kind of, I don't really know what to say, but that's what I've been observing in the last couple of, in these jobs that I've been doing, which are basically, about kind of how the team works together. And although there are positives to that, I sort of do see how some people are relating, and I'm thinking this is actually really bad because this isn't doing there's a lack of understanding actually, and kind of sort of moral, just sort of way,
I kind of agree, like what you said about Black Mountain, like in the kind of like a flat layout of hierarchy, which is true, but at the same time there is like that competitiveness. It's like a bit of an overshadow over the fact that like it's hierarchical. Like you know that like you're going to be like fighting for spots in open calls, and like it makes people sad. Like in like every single conversation I've had, people are like, yeah, I don't see why people are fighting, but at the same time like it's kind of what it is. Yeah.
Yeah,